everyone.
What's going on, guys? An official MCU here. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video, we're going to have our Moonknight Episode 3 full breakdown and things that you may have missed with Easter eggs. And stay tuned towards the end of the video for theories and speculations for continuing episodes for the Moonknight series streaming on Disney+. So without further ado, we're going to hop right on into it. Spoilers ahead, but I thought that there is, of course, a given. We're going to be reading from IGN's article and their review here. Of course, I'm going to have their full article linked down in the description down below, with Mark Spector mostly in control of his own body this week of this episode, of course, and the adventure whisking us from London to Cairo. Moon Knight's third episode was the most action-packed and illuminating entry so far. I definitely, in my own thoughts and opinions, have to agree with what they've said so far. Yes, this was an absolute, finally some action here, action-packed episode here for Moon Knight, and especially from what we've seen him and his character in Marvel Comics ever since the 80s, of course, it's honestly such a well-deserved thing. He is one of the most, I guess, actionist kind of characters out there in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so cut the chatter, cut all the talking and all that, and of course, I know you need to have some type of storyline, of course, going there as well to keep the overall show interesting, of course, but it was starting to get to the point of where it was going back and forth, and this is something I've been hearing other Marvel fans out there and fans of the show as well, is that their only gripe here about the show is that there does seem to be a lot of chatter going back and forth, and by that I mean a lot of chatter going back and forth between Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, of course, especially there in episode 2. Now, episode 1, of course, I already have my full breakdown and review, of course, on those two separate episodes, so you guys can also go check those out, of course, as well. But of course, episode 1 did a lot of, I guess, ground building here for this overall series here, because this is such a different thing than we've ever seen here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're introducing a new character here through a TV show, their own TV show, instead of having them come in through a movie or something like that. You're having an A-list character, or an A-list actor rather, that is going to be brought here into the MCU. Oscar Isaac is widely known for his role in the Star Wars franchise as well, and for a third thing that this overall Moon Knight series is bringing to the table here and bringing new here to the Disney Plus spectrum of things as well, is the fact that we're getting more kind of violent themes and, I guess, tones here, and that's something that we're going to be seeing here continuing on, going on throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially these upcoming films here. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was recently rated PG-13 here, so it's already kind of a given that it's going to have some more violent tones and themes here, stuff that you're not necessarily used to. Maybe, sure, I guess Endgame or Infinity War kind of were starting to push the barrier there and kind of really showing us the light here of how, I guess, violent these different themes and tones that they can go here with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I really definitely do feel like Moon Knight is for sure picking that up. The same thing goes for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, just telling from its trailers and TV spots alone at that, and that is honestly evidently a whole setup, I think, for what we're going to be seeing here with Deadpool and his character Ryan Reynolds making his entry here into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. There's also a load of different questions that were also kind of answered throughout this overall episode as well, something that we've kind of been questioning for these last two questions, and surprisingly, nonetheless, one huge question out there that a lot of fans have been seeing is, what is Moon Knight's actual powers? Like, what is he actually? Like, what can he do? And I think that this episode definitely proved on what he's actually capable of here, and same thing goes for the end of episode 2 there, of what we saw there in him and his action going on there too. You need to read from the IGN's article here. The learning curve for Mark and his alternate personality Stephen working together in one body while trying to save the world from Arthur Harrow's mad plot to cleanse the world in his steep one, and by the end, Khonshu winds up trapping in a tiny statue, and a Moon Knight is essentially gone from both of their lives. That's less than ideal because, well, they kind of need that cool Egyptian god armor to fight bad guys. So essentially explaining here, Khonshu being trapped here in the statue, seeing all the other gods come together and trap Khonshu inside this tiny little statue here, and they have done this previously with other Egyptian gods here as well. Something that you might have not realized, or why this is important actually, is the fact that Khonshu gives Moon Knight his powers. He gives him the suit. He is essentially the suit for, and that also goes for Moon Knight and Mr. Knight there as well. Khonshu, before leaving and kind of completely going away, he tells Layla to have Mark Spector break him out and Stephen Grant to kind of break him out. So I definitely think that we can have Mark Spector kind of go in total badass mode here without any powers or anything like that. We're definitely going to be seeing his true, full, untitled power here without the suit, without any help from Khonshu, the moon god, or anything like that. And that there is also something that we were able to see a little bit of a glimpse here towards the beginning of the episode 3 of Moon Knight, with a whole chase there going on there. Layla's character also felt like a more an active participant in this week's episode, with a good amount of agency, and as she followed our main character Mark to her home country of Egypt, and their backstory as a married couple was also addressed a bit more, including the fact that Mark had kept Stephen a secret from her for such a long time. I mean, yeah, sure, Layla was definitely a very cool character to see pop up here in episode 2, and and also episode 3. And of course, episode 3 was giving us more context of who she actually is and that history and who her character actually is, what she's going to be bringing to the table here and providing here for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe here as well. However, I have to be completely honest with you guys, and on my own thoughts and opinions, it's just not there completely for me. I'm getting a better understanding and more context of who she actually is and why she's important here, but I think we need a little bit more out of her. I think that goes without saying. I'm definitely excited to see these continuing episodes and more expansion here, not only for Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and the Moon Knight character here, but also for Layla and her character, because I definitely think she's going to be a significant role not only in this TV series, but also in the future of the MCU here as well, as she definitely does prove herself to have some skills here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in this episode 3. This episode also gave us more confirmation of the whole idea of what's going on here between Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and must I also mention Jake Lockley, who's yet to be introduced here. I'm surprised that they didn't actually completely full on go ahead and introduce him here in this episode, but we did surprisingly actually see him in this episode, believe it or not. I'm going to explain that there in just a moment. Starting out here with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and this whole multi-personality thing going on here, there was a lot of questions going around here. Many people believe that this here was being caused by Khonshu and his possession of Mark Spector's body or Stephen Grant's body. However, this is seemingly something that Mark Spector has been suffering from before Khonshu ever came into his life and as a role for him. The whole idea and concept and also interactions between Mark Spector and Stephen Grant remind me a whole lot about Green Goblin and Norman Osborn as well. I think is the best way to kind of compare and contrast it to kind of give you guys a better understanding of what's exactly going on. The article goes on to read, we're still not quite sure how long they've been married or anything like that, Layla and Mark Spector, or how long Mark has been Moon Knight, but it seems like he's been Moon Knight the entire time with her, also keeping that secret, piecing things better together that we saw in episode 2 with Harrow's words about Mark's secrets last week. It would also appear Mark had a hand in the murder of Layla's archaeologist father, and then sometime after this he met Layla. Regardless, it makes sense that when Layla tells him she feels like she barely knows him, this of course does make sense because he seems to be kind of switching personalities off and on here. Even then at that, it also seems, of course, I think it's a knowing thing that Stephen Grant doesn't really feel like he knows himself, but I also think it's safe to assume that Mark Spector doesn't even completely fully understand himself as well with everything that's going on here. I also wanted to mention the Midnight Man, who's portrayed by the one and only Gaspar Thomas Ulliel. Sorry if I mispronounced his last name. He unfortunately had passed away by the end of filming here for the Moon Knight show. Very unfortunate. May he rest in peace. Quickly before we end today's video and this overall breakdown and review here for episode 3 of Moon Knight, real quick, staying prepared here for those theories and speculations here yet to come, because there's plenty of different questions here to be answered here. Who on earth is Jake Lockley? Jake Lockley is the third personality of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and also Moon Knight and Mr. Knight there as well. They're the third one. So in this episode, we see that Stephen and Mark continue to go ahead and argue between each other, especially at that beginning fight scene there when they're running through the rooftops there. Reminds me a lot of Assassin's Creed. Mark is thinking that Stephen Grant is overpowering him and taking back control of the body. However, this is not true, and this is actually Jake Lockley, who's going total ruthless mode and killing people here. And this is also the case ever since episode 1 there as well, with the car chase with the ice cream or cupcake car, whatever it was, when they were running from the Harrow after Stephen Grant woke up here in the middle of nowhere, presumably with all these people here that were kind of following around the Harrow, and they went on this huge, I guess, like car chase here going on, and then he started to blank out and black out, and then he'd wake back up, and then like a bunch of people would be dead around him and that type of stuff. That wasn't Mark Spector either. That was actually supposed to be Jake Lockley, which is going to be, I'm pretty sure, evidently actually revealed to us in episode 4. Now, in the comics, Jake Lockley is simply supposed to be like a taxi cab type of driver who's kind of driving around in New York. That's where the comics are taking place. However, as we already know, this one is taking place over in London. However, that's not to say that he can't go over to the USA because of Mark Spector having a passport there and maybe also presumably an ID. This could also be an explanation for Mark Spector being accused and Stephen Grant also being accused of killing the archaeologist as well there. We haven't seen Mark Spector get confused about that or mention anything about that, but probably when it is mentioned to him, he's probably going to get really confused, and we'll have that revealed that it was actually supposed to be Jake Lockley that was the one that went total ruthless mode, which is very interesting, and the differences, and also seeing the differences here with the show and also with the comics there as well. For example, Stephen Grant in the comics is supposed to be like a millionaire and really rich. However, in the show, he's simply working as a gift shop, I guess, employee here, and then Mark Spector is supposed to be the total badass one here, and the one that's causing, like, I guess all of this, I guess not havoc, but per se, but I guess all all the killing here, and that's all that there is going on, and that there is actually supposed to be Jake Lockley is the one who's actually doing it here in the show. And Jake Lockley in the comics is simply, as I had already mentioned, supposed to be a taxi driver, and he kind of just is the one that kind of gets people place to place type of thing. And by people, I mean these other personalities. It most definitely is very interesting to see how these different personalities kind of are playing out and working out here, and because this is somewhat of a real world thing that people actually struggle with in the real world, so to kind of also kind of get those other elements and bringing the other true real world aspects into that there as well is something very, very interesting. The way these different personalities are kind of working and acting along together is essentially that their different parts of the brain essentially are like locked up when there's one personality in control, and the same thing goes for when there's another personality in control. I think it goes out with saying that this here has to be one of the most interesting, I guess, Disney Plus series out there as well. In my own opinions, I also, of course, was a huge fan of pretty much all the other ones, essentially equally, of course, as well. But this one's definitely setting that bar there high, and I'm very excited to see here what's yet to come here. I'm very, very in love with this overall show, and I cannot wait to see what's here to come for more. Of course, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified when our next week video here comes out for the breakdown and review on episode 4 of Moon Knight there as well. Of course, I want to know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think in the comments down below, what you guys think here about everything that's going on here with episode 3 here, and as well some of your theories and predictions here for the continuing future episodes here as well for episode 4 next week. I'll drop a video if you enjoy it, and it really does help the channel, and share on Instagram unofficial MCU for more Marvel related content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.